Well, joining us now is best-selling author and YouTube star Jefferson Bethke. Jeff, it's great to have you
Thanks for
back
having
with
me.
us again. What were some of your impressions of Christianity when you were young, as you were coming up and exposed?
Yeah, totally. I think, and that's the hard part, because we live in a culture that can have so many, it's very easy to be a Christian, so there can be a lot of misrepresentations. And so I think, yeah, for me, I thought religion was all about doing a bunch of stuff, or maybe if I do this, then God will love me. And we obviously know the reverse is true, where God loves us, so then we want to do stuff. So yeah, I think there was just a lot of perceptions that weren't that healthy when I was growing up.
Which is pretty typical.
Yeah.
Especially young people that grow up, like in youth groups and things like that. But when did God really grab your heart?
Yeah, I would have been 19. I was in college, and it was really this moment of, I felt like I had already had a season of doing the religious activity, and so then I said no to that. And then high school, I had a season, high school and college, I had a season of, okay, well, I'm just gonna live however I want, and then that didn't end well either. So I feel like I had almost tried both paths of kind of religion and rebellion. And then that was really when Jesus kind of rocked me and basically showed me that me as the king of my own life doesn't end well. You know, like I wasn't created to be the authority on my own, and that's when I leaned into him.
You say something in your book that was so powerful to me. You said, when our world revolves around us, God exists to satisfy our needs. We are the center of the story. God is present as butler, not Lord. Ooh, ouch.
Yeah, yeah, that was, that's something I've had to wrestle with myself, but I think the context of that passage is me talking about how we can sometimes make the Bible a roadmap to life. That's kind of the phrase we use. And the hard part about that is, yes, you want to go for wisdom and answers and stuff like that, but God doesn't tell you who to date, what school to go to, stuff like that. And so when you go to it for that, what it naturally creates is kind of the scriptures are here to serve me. They're here to give me my answer. And then it kind of turns God to, I say butler there, but even in another part of the book, I say almost like an eternal Santa Claus, right? Where it's, here's our list, and he wants to just give it to us, and then if he doesn't, we don't like him.
So what changes in our thinking that helps us make that transition so that the story is his and we join the...
Yeah, I use a funny example in the book of, I'm a huge like Denzel Washington or Will Smith fan. So like if they're in a movie, I'm gonna go see it, right? And so, you know, like I don't go to a movie and then like there's this scene where, you know, Denzel's talking and then there's like a blurry person in the background going, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me, right? Like first of all, they probably wouldn't put that in the movie, right? Because that means the extra's not doing his job well. I go to the movie for Denzel. And so the reason I use that example is basically saying like the whole story when you zoom out for thousands of years is about Jesus, is about creation, about what God's doing with his people. And us trying to think the story's about us looks about as stupid as us trying to take 3 seconds on the blip of the movie saying, look at me, look at me.
The first words in your book are, Christianity is a bounced check to my generation.
Very first sentence, a fun first sentence to start with, right?
Heads up.
Yeah, exactly. What I really meant with that is, and I think it's actually putting us in a great place because sometimes when there's difficulty, it makes you really push in more. But what I meant with that really is that I feel like we don't realize how much of our Christianity is infected by kind of postmodern thought, industrial revolution, kind of some weird, you know, Gnostic principles of secular sacred divide. And so with that, I feel like a lot of people my age and my generation would try to follow Jesus when they were younger and then go to cash in on that when they really needed it, when they're suffering and hurt and pain. And it wasn't the real vibrant faith Jesus wanted to give them. So again, it bounced per se, to use the check language.
And then they walk.
Exactly. And so that's what I really encourage young people with when I speak to them in my videos, my peers, college students. I basically say, like, I don't want you to say no to Jesus, but you can. You can say no to Jesus, but make sure you're saying no to Jesus for the right reasons. So many people say no to the parody, and it's like you don't even really know what the real thing's about. So if you're gonna say no, find that out first, and then you can do that.
How do we begin to grasp the vastness of God? You talk about that there are some Christians who are Genesis 1 believers and some who are Genesis 3 believers. What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, so I think, you know, the gospel I always heard was, you're a sinner, you need to get saved, you know, and come to Jesus.
The Roman road.
Exactly, exactly. Which, those are great tools, I think, specifically if we're in a place with someone who maybe doesn't know English well or different languages. But really, the story starts in Genesis 1 and 2 as the whole cosmos, right? The very beginning is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So in one verse, we have this marriage between two dimensions, God dimension, our dimension, heaven and earth, and it's this one, and then he kind of puts us as these caretakers, as these image bearers to reflect out into the world what he's like, and we chose to rebel. And so when you start with that story, I think it makes the story bigger. You actually start caring about creation. You start caring about all the domains of life, like art and music and all these different things. Because it's not starting with you're a sinner. It's starting with God created all this and it's good, and he's putting it back together.
His story.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
You also talk about wounds and scars.
Yeah.
We all have wounds.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody does. And everybody, I think, wants innately in their deepest part of their hearts to be healed, to find comfort, release from it. But there's a value to the wound only really when it becomes the scar.
Totally, totally. Yeah, wounds, you know, are sensitive and they hurt and they're painful and we cover them up. But, you know, the cool part when you see in the Gospels is when someone touches Jesus, they become clean, right? And that's what the first step to healing a wound is get it clean, and then it becomes a scar. And scars tell a story, right? I don't know if this is just a dude thing, but I know me, like, you know, just you want to go on about your scars, right? Hey, this is what this happened here. This happened when I was 12, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a real beautiful way to think about us telling people about Jesus, is when you found healing, you'll no longer hide it. You'll no longer, it'll be sensitive. You'll actually say, hey, look what Jesus did. And the cool part is we have a Lord who can identify with us. Our Lord himself, Jesus, has scars. He went through the death and resurrection, and he himself has scars and is actually a testament of what he's done.
I love the line in a song that a contemporary group sings, heal the wound, but leave the scar to remind us of how merciful you are.
Exactly, and I think this is actually a really interesting thought, and we don't have this is definitely more opinion, but if Jesus is coming out of the grave with scars, might it be that we think of heaven as this place where we're all perfectly put back together and healed? No, it actually might be the place where, yes, we're healed, but it's the scars are still there as a way of showing this is what actually made me human. This is actually what my story is. And so rather than taking away the scars in heaven, I think they'll actually be there.
When somebody reads It's Not What You Think, what do you want them to walk away with? What are you trying to stir up in their hearts?
Yeah, it kind of almost gets back to even the premise I was saying of so many people have said no to Jesus because I think it's been a Christianity that's been flimsy or flaky or kind of almost malnourished, right? But really, when you really dig into the first century text and you really see that this Jesus, he turned the world upside down, right? And his kingdom is coming down here on heaven as it is on earth. It's just more explosive. And so the whole thing I really want people to take away with is, man, Christianity is so much more vibrant and bigger and so much more explosive than you ever thought.
Know the whole story, see the big picture. Well, if you want to learn more, Jefferson's book, It's Not What You Think, is available nationwide. I think you'll find it fascinating and certainly food for thought. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here.